Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host is currently sowing his wild oats in the parts of Canada that other podcast hosts never get to reach. Luke Gledall. How are you doing, Luke?
I'm very good. How are you, Rich?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. It really feels like much more than a week than since we were sort of giddy and overhyped last time round. And yeah, you know, Christmas is gone. I waved goodbye to my increasingly small mother in Scotland and headed off down the road to see Sheffield Wednesday play football. And, you know, they really produced a kind of a holiday taint of a performance today, befitting of the season.
You know, here on the Different Gravy, we are the podcast that wants to be all Lord Mayor's show all the time. And definitely with this time of year, Christmas is the Lord Mayor's event, I believe. Lord Mayor's festive event. So it's very much been after the Lord Mayor's show in a number of different ways. For these past two games, we're going to just cast our dreary eyes over. Before we get any further, I just want to kind of get a little apology for the sound quality on my end. I am currently in Toronto Pearson Airports. I have tried to sniffle my way into a number of airport lounges to get a little bit quieter for the call. And then I've just been so tight-fisted and northern that I didn't want to pay exorbitant amounts to the crooks that run them. So here I am.
Absolutely fair enough. Yeah. So we might get the occasional announcement. We might hear some gossip, you know?
Of course, yeah. Gossip about the cost of expensive sandwiches.
Yeah.
I'm nearby have you ever heard of the Genesis G70? Apparently it's the 2019 North American Car of the Year. And,
no.
I was half tempted to stop by and ask the lady, what the fuck is a Genesis?
I think you would have been fair enough to do so.
And then she would have said, you see this car in front of me? I said, yes.
It's that one.
It's that. That's one of them. It's plenty more like him.
You see that award in the front in the front window there? Yeah, that's the awardies one. Oh yeah. Well, you know, maybe if we get a bit desperate later on, we could have that conversation live.
I could ask her what opinion on the Wednesday report of the foreman.
Yeah. What's the reason? Is it sprouts? Too much turkey? You know, it's full of tryptophan. So I'm thinking to move along to the breaking hoo-hoos. Luke, is that all right by you?
I think that sounds fantastic, Rich. Let's go to breaking hoo-hoos.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
So the main thing really was the Boxing Day bash with Stoke City.
Before we just get into breaking hoo-hoos for that, Rich, a few little small bits and pieces. I did manage to watch the extended highlights of our last win, which just feels so long ago.
Yes.
Pre-Christmas, and I got to see the extended highlights, and noted for some of Sam Hutchinson's comments. A little stat for you is that he didn't say diagonals, but he said he loves that crossfield pass does Baz at one point. He also said here's a tactical tip from Sam Hutchinson. He said against 3-5-2, all you need to do is move the ball quickly.
Yes. That's all you need to do.
That's all you need to do.
Which is what we did today when they went to 3-5-2. Just move the ball quickly, easy peasy, 6-0. Second half, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? Yeah. And the other great revelation that knew you as a beast, and you don't want to play him in training. So there we go. There are the absolute diamonds that Sam Hutchinson dropped during the commentary. Those are the extended highlights of the diamond. You know,
yes.
So much gold that he dropped throughout the entire 90 plus minutes of commentary, and that was the good stuff.
Those are the little beautiful nuggets that you're left with when it's all simmered down.
And I think maybe for the commentary side, to get the second, I just want to cover quickly is: did you happen to see or hear the Gary Monk pre-match? The presser before Stoke.
I saw bits and pieces, but
did you see the bit at the end where he was asked opinion on what to do regarding racism in football?
I didn't. I heard about this, but I didn't actually see it. So what was this?
I can't remember what he said because it was so anodyne. But then he basically turned to the journalist and said, "What would you do?" So then we had a bit of the journalist giving his opinion, and then Gary Monk being so resigned and saying, "I don't think you'll ever stop it." It's like you can't ever stop burglary and houses being burgled, can you? So clearly there's been a bit too much. Maybe there's just been a bit too much turkey on the brain this Christmas.
Maybe.
I
also think we need to introduce Gary Monk to one of the sponsors of the show, Simply Safe. Whilst they can't guarantee you will never be burgled, they can guarantee we'll get a blooming good look at the guy's face.
Excellent. I welcome these new sponsors, and despite the fact I've never heard of before, I will say that me liking their services.
They're one of these that they sponsor loads of podcasts to the point where you think, like, surely anyone that is going to buy this service has heard about it now. You know, like Stamps.com. Is anybody still not? If you were going to do Stamps.com, you've probably done Stamps.com now, haven't you? Surely.
That's a good question. I mean, some of my two new friends I met in my travels, shout out to my new friends Brett and Melody. Melody had a Warby Parker bag.
Yeah.
But then she told me she doesn't listen to many podcasts at all. So that kind of felt like a weird thing. Surely if you gave money to Warby Parker, you would have given a few shekels to your favourite podcast in the process.
Yeah, surely.
Anyway, so go to SimplySave and go to simplysave.com and use the promo code GRAVY.
Yeah, loadsofgravy.com/simplysave/your
Excellent.
I'm in a bit of a mood, Luke. I'll be honest, but let's do this. Let's come on.
Let's do this. Yeah.
So Stoke. Another game without Fletcher. He's contracted dengue fever or some sort of terrible thing that's eating away at his insides or his nostrils or something. He's still a poorly boy. So we persisted with Rhodes and Nuhiu. I didn't manage to sort of follow this one too closely, but I've seen the sort of the supposed highlights since. Did you follow it a bit closer than me?
Here's a funny story about this one, Rich. So I was actually watching it on the train at great data expense because there's no Wi-Fi on the train. And basically it said this is a poor game, and it was as flat as the plains of Manitoba out of my window. And then basically I had the second half. Do I want to go walk around Winnipeg for 45 minutes or watch the second half? And it was a genuinely difficult decision to make, Rich. But I opted for the foul mistress in my life of Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. And I can't tell you whether it paid off or not. Even though, from there I saw another 4 goals. Which, we were the losses. I don't know.
Value for money.
Know. So basically, the game against Stoke, I'm not sure whether it's worth walking around a new small Canadian Prairie City for the first time, or just watching a very limp Boxing Day performance.
Yeah, so Stoke versus Sheffield Wednesday.
I mean,
possibly better than a Prairie City.
Possibly better than a Canadian Prairie City. Though I quite like Saskatoon, so I'd probably say Saskatoon's better. And my hometown of Calgary, Alberta as well. However, I do want to say, as probably the listener tell, we're giving a very lethargic after Chris performance on this podcast. So it's kind of fitting with the theme of what we've seen. So you saw the highlights?
I've seen the goals. I saw a spawny effort from James McLean. I saw a spawny effort from Morgan Fox, a spawny effort from Tom Lees. And two very, very late spawny efforts from some other Stoke players that I don't care to. Even though their names are right in front of me, I don't care to read their names.
So I made quite a few notes from this one. So.
Good. Excellent.
Good for you.
I will try and pay attention whilst you go through that.
So I didn't think there was any great cohesion anywhere on the pitch. Both Iorfa and Lees had pretty bad games. I mean, did you see the clanger? Obviously, you saw the goal. So Iorfa did drop a real clanger for that first goal. He did.
Although he recovered and then sort of stood pointing the referee towards the ball, like forgetting that the game was still going on. Like the ref didn't blow the whistle. So why did he stop? Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so there wasn't a great cohesion overall round. We didn't really get out to the wings a great deal. Rhodes and Nuyu had a real tough time against Shawcross and Bart. I mean, they're two impeccably physical centre-backs, and I just didn't think they were getting it, especially when, we have those frustrating times with Jordan Rhodes of sometimes being not the most footballing team in the championship or on the planet. But, when we kind of hit it forward towards Rhodes and he has to act as the, guy to chest it down and try and do something, it's just depressing. And Stoke really wanted that game so much more than we did. It was just insane. It seemed like their cup final. It was insane how much they wanted it more in comparison to when we did.
That's disappointing to hear, but that's how it sounded from the coverage I've seen as well.
Did you see the reach header in the first half?
No, I didn't. No.
That was really nice. Yeah, just completely out of nowhere. Harris just kind of had the ball, and then he just plucked up like a little cross. And I was like, "What is he doing?" And then found Reach, who just met the ball so well with his head. He just planted and rocketed a header against the near post. He is
weirdly good at heading.
It's very strange. Yeah, I said it was a rare treat, like finding a selection box on Boxing Day that has slipped a touch too far beneath a tree. Yes,
nice. Hasn't had all the good ones taken already.
Yeah. And it was just weird because, we then got the 2 goals. The Morgan Fox one was deliciously spawny. It looked very classy and replay, but it was very fortuitous, very fortuitous. I actually thought the second goal was a really good goal that we scored. To come over to win all, I thought it was unfortunate to, met it with a header and Jack Butland. So I guess people say
almost saved it into his own box, into his own goal, didn't he, Butland?
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure about this joke, Rich. Maybe you can kind of workshop it. Okay. He was formerly England's #1 keeper, right?
Yes.
So, but he still has the England's #1 crisp packet hand. He's got a really fantastic Walker's Sensations crisp packet hand.
Nice.
Which he palmed it onto the bar. And then Tom Lees was there to just snap it up.
Do you think there's anything there with Golden Wonder? Because they used to be the top dogs, and then Walker's kind of stole their march, so
I think so.
Butland being yesterday's man in terms of his crisp packet hands.
I think he's kind of wrong, because Golden Wonder's cheese and onion was green, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
And the salt and vinegar blue, which is the colour antithesis to Walker's.
It's the right way around, I would say. But
people do, but I think green is more spring onion, I think.
But they don't taste like spring onion.
No, that's the cheese and onion. I don't know. I'm pretty sold on the blue Walker's cheese and onion myself. Contentious. A bit of needle on a different gravy.
You're such a Mac.
So when we were 2-1 up and bizarrely looking like we're cruising into a victory, I thought the second Stoke goal was quite a good finish.
It was, actually. It was.
It was a good finish from, I think it's Sol Campbell's son, isn't it? Tyrese Campbell?
Oh, okay.
I believe so. But then the third one was just absolute piss poor defending. And at that point, I was kind of staring. I was just doing a 100-yard stare at my iPhone. I was watching this pretty abject loss. But I think just to kind of sum up, Monk said the same as well. Basically, we got what we deserved, which was like we didn't deserve anything from the game because we were just second best for so much of it. Everybody just seemed completely hungover and lethargic.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of, obviously we got away with not having Fletcher in the previous game because we rely on him so massively. But we did manage to grab a win. But that added to the fact that we do have, by and large, a pretty old squad. It really feels like these weeks where there's 3-4 games in a very quick spell. we just struggled to get anything going on those other. I think, I mean, just looking statistically, there's not most games we get sort of 10 shots away, maybe even more. This game we had 4 shots and two of them resulted in goals. So basically, other than scoring, we barely went near their goal, and I guess that the Adam Reach effort, which is not like us at all. It's a bit of a worry because I think you could lump Stoke and today's opponents, Cardiff, together in some ways, in that they are 2 clubs under new managers, and both those managers have kind of taken the route of just doing the ugly stuff to try and keep yourself safe and scramble together enough points to keep things going. I think maybe that's a bit unfair to Stoke, but that Cardiff side today that have gone from Neil Warnock to Neil Harris. I mean,
I know. It's
it felt like they'd gone from Neil Warnock to Neil Harris, to be honest. It really, but it's that graft and the fact they're going to make you work hard. And I think Monk is one of his kind of mottos is that you need to compete. You need to do the sort of tough stuff to let yourself play. And it's a bit disappointing that 2 games running we've been found lacking in that regard. That it's the desire and the fight bit that we're not doing well enough. And to be honest, we're not playing well enough either. No. So it's all falling apart.
I do have a final point.
Yeah, please.
I just want to get in quickly. So I was watching it and I'm like, we're giving away so many free kicks, and which isn't a particularly new thing for Wednesday. How I do want to say, I did check the stats on who scored, and we gave away 25 fouls in that game.
Oh my goodness.
And that is just absolute madness. I swear that's a record. I tried to look for the record of most fouls conceded in a game, and by one team. It must be close. It's pretty up there. In terms of Wednesday relation.
Well, if you look at the kind of, again, the who scored characteristics of Sheffield Wednesday, very strong creating goals, creating scoring chances, very weak avoiding fouling in dangerous areas. We just do it all the blooming time.
I know. I was chatting with one of my oldest, Randy, who basically said, we just seem to steamroll players when there's no need to. It's a consistent. We talked about this before. Like, is there basically that? I don't think Wednesday are a dirty team by any stretch of the imagination, but we give away a lot of fouls. Like, we don't really help that argument for ourselves, really.
I think there's obviously a bit of that. Because today there was some really it was the sort of game where you pick up on those frustrations. But it's things like, there was an incident in the second half where Burner was winning a free header. His man was 2 or 3 feet away from him, but for some reason he put his hands on the man. It didn't help him win the header. It meant that their player could fall over and get a free kick. And it was just like, there's absolutely no point touching him. You don't need to touch him. And all it did was hurt us. It didn't hinder them. It didn't stop him doing something he wanted to do. It just gave them a free kick from nothing. And that's on top of I think what we do is we get a bit overexcited and kind of bundle into people quite often. That's the kind of most common foul that we seem to give away. But yeah, it's a really frustrating habit to have, particularly given that I think when Lees is playing instead of Burner, I think we're pretty susceptible to letting in goals from set pieces as well. It's a bad combination.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Somehow, Lees got 8.9 and was man of the match in that game, according to Who Scored.
Really?
Yeah, head and shoulders above any other player on the pitch.
I don't know. I also had a bit of a dog of the game, but Lees made 1 or 2 clangers as well. Maybe more so. I think actually more so in today's game that it was a bit questionable in terms of performance.
Yes, yeah. Do we want to move into? Have you got any more sort of thoughts on the?
No, that's just Stoke. It's just I was really hoping it would be a blip. When I was kind of watching it, I felt the team. You need maybe we could have got away with a win on that day. It was so close.
Yeah.
It was so close to something completely undeserved. And you really hope that the team and Monk is is whipping them into shape a little bit when they let their concentration drop and when they let their efforts drop. And then I don't know, that weirdly brings us into today's game against Cardiff,
which unfortunately was a little bit of more of the same. But we made a few changes to the team, mostly because we had to, I think. But Luongo dropped out, as did Nuyu and Rhodes. And in their place, we played Murphy and Winall and Hutchinson in the midfield. So this was Winall starting a game effectively kind of up front on his own, although I think more often than not, Reach was trying to partner him, certainly in the first half, trying to partner him. So it looked more of a two up top. This was... Oh, man. I mean, letting in 2 goals in the first 10 minutes is just... It's schoolboy stuff, and they were both so easy to score. I know I sound a bit like a broken record sometimes with this, but Tom Lees, when he comes up against a guy like Glazol or Glatzel, it's like he's lost already before the game starts. Like, the first thing he did was rattle through the back of him, and somehow the ref didn't give it. But it was like the next thing that happened was he completely lost a header because he was trying to wrestle with him. And he's just not good enough against that type of striker, to the point where I'm surprised we didn't opt to make the change and put Burner in, because I think Burner would have maybe coped a bit better with him. But all game he was allowed to do pretty much whatever he wanted when he wanted. And towards the end of the game, I think actually he had one of his best periods of the match, because he could take it down on his chest, he could take it down on his knee, because we'd given up trying to compete with him in any way, all because he's tall and can run about a bit. Fletcher must come away from training against Tom Lees thinking he is like the king of football. Honestly. The goal sort of summed it up. He's trying to grab at him, he's trying to wrestle him, and forgets the fact that there's a football there, which Glatzel poked home very easily. We're getting some airport announcements.
Oh, Jesus. I'm so
We're
sorry.
getting that beautiful... this is Foley work from Dr. Luke. He's bringing us real sounds found out in the world. It's great stuff. This is like a Radio 4 documentary. Lots of flavour. Could you get quite close to a coffee pot bubbling? And maybe a sizzle from a frying pan. It's evocative, Luke, and that's what people want.
That's what people want, yeah. I'm just glad we didn't get into. I was really worried that we'd have the announcement, and I get to hear the same thing in French just after.
Oh yes.
For the last. So
I would say, I don't know how much you want to talk about today's performance. So were you able to?
Well, how much after the losses, how much do you really want to be doing this podcast, Rich? Let's be honest. I'm here for it though, Rich. I've made notes.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's going through the kind of minute by minute, which is harder for me at the game because I don't want to be one of those wallies that sits on their phone. So maybe you could give us the kind of timeline, and I'll essentially add some colour and moaning to the
good stuff. Good stuff. I just do you think it's interesting? I mean, we started pretty quickly. We started fairly well,
Aside from conceding twice, it's maybe the best 15 minutes of football we've had in about 3 months.
Well, it's up there. I don't know I would go that far, but I think it was a good start, we had like a good... I think that was a good chance to win all, I think.
There was, yeah.
And I loved the interplay from that was just fantastic. Because basically, Hutch did a brilliant bit of break-up play. That's what you want. You want the break-up play, then it just fell to Baz, and he did a lovely sweet ball forward. I can't even remember now. I can't remember the full things. I have the note saying it was a good chance to win all. Ended with win all, and obviously didn't end up in anything. So that first goal, I have a number of questions. I was surprised they could take it that quickly. I was surprised the ref allowed it. So more on the caliber of the referee and his makeup as a referee and possibly as a human being as well. I'm just going to go straight after him as well. I'm actually getting a plain back CK right now, where I'm just going to make his life a misery. I'm not going to be malicious and do anything really nasty. I'm just going to just wee on his tires or something, or like or like if he goes to get like a chocolate bar, I'm just going to like, I know his favorite ones, and I'm just going to destroy all his favorite ones, buy all of them before
burn them in front
from GT News before he gets there. And then I'm just going to just give a little maniacal giggle from when I just see from the sidelines, just seeing his disappointment.
So I know, obviously, he's a man with some history with Sheffield Wednesday. But today, I think by and large we want referees to let play run and not be too fussy, don't we?
Well, I mean, it was a foul, though, wasn't it? It was a free kick. And then I think from the attacking team, you want the advantage to take the free kick and get it done quickly.
Yeah.
But I mean, you are still from our sense, from a defensive side, I mean, it's not. I thought it was too quick. I thought we weren't,
But there's probably presumably he blew the whistle. Like you have to kind of there's things that have to be done there. But I'm not particularly pointing the finger of blame at the referee there. I'm looking at our defence that watched a kind of 7-foot behemoth just wander through them and then let him score. Like, why did nobody react to the fact that
everybody was just so kind of half asleep to this. Everyone was still full of the tryptophan from Turkey to even just be slow on the brain. Maybe they were also just having a brainstorming session with Gary Monk about ways to stop burglary. Which hilariously then, we didn't stop being just having a goal stolen from us. No. It was so poor. I mean, so that first bit was like, that's my first question to the referee, was like, why was that taken so quickly? My second thing is all Wednesday. Is basically like, the ball comes in, we're so out of sorts, he just controls it down. Then there's a brief moment, which basically 9 times out of 10, Tom Lees puts his foot through it and takes it off Glatzel. But then he just didn't, and then just gave him all the time, and then he somehow just managed to just kind of creep the ball in past Dawson, and Dawson wasn't ready.
I thought Dawson's positioning was pretty poor for that one as well.
That was pretty bad as well. But I mean, also you've got another player in there. It's not just a one-on-one.
No,
Palmer's also there to assist Tom Lees with the incompetence, really.
And Palmer really got balled out by Bannon after the goal. He didn't look at Lees. He just shouted at Palmer.
Interesting.
But Tom Lees should have done so much better than he did, and he was in the position to stop it. Because he sort of lifted his leg up to let the guy shoot underneath. I don't really know how that happened, but it was really poor all round. But I thought it was a bit of a strange thing to single out Palmer for being at fault for it.
No, that's why I thought it was completely Tom Lees. Looking back at it, you've got 3 players who are just poor. Just let a really sporty. It wasn't even. I think the ball in was quite good. I mean, Glatzel does something, but
it's a decent ball. He just about controlled it. It took him a long time to control it, but he was given the time. And
is it just because he's like 400 feet tall?
4.5 feet tall.
Yeah. So it was just impeccably poor to just be 1-0 down so quick. It's just
before we even really got started.
Yeah, exactly. So already we're just a goal down, obviously, as it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then then we conceded again, almost the next bit of play afterwards.
Pretty much. And for that goal for Cardiff, that was a really, really good finish.
Yeah.
And a beautiful ball over to Tomlin. Tomlin just had enough time to pick out, played across to Hoylett, and Hoylett just rolled it in. Defensively, the errors and issues kind of come before that, I think.
It's just a shambles all round, isn't it?
It is a bit, really, defensively. It's hard to kind of attribute blame in that situation so much when I think it was a really good goal scored by Cardiff.
Yeah, but again, I think Tom Lees, I don't know how he thinks that Tomlin's offside. He wasn't even close to being offside.
Oh, so you think there was Tom Lees appealing for offside in the play?
He definitely was. Yeah, he had his hand up and he stopped playing.
Right, that kind of brings in some of the hesitancy of dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
I thought the main bit was just basically not letting that first cross come in to Tomlin was the first step, really. That was a big piece in that. That was a big defensive piece for that. Because from there, everything is basically they're in a place of complete advantage. I mean, I guess from the sense of looking at that, like, where were the other defenders? We were completely out of position.
Oh, totally. I'm just sort of watching.
How did you kind of feel that so I guess looking at the formation was interesting because I saw the lineup and I kind of glossed over it. I was there thinking, oh, it's probably a 4-3-3. But then, reaching that number 10 role. So then effectively you've got two holding defensive midfielders, different capacities and different capabilities in Hutch and Bannon.
Well, Hutch was as far back as I've ever seen him play. He was well and truly in third centre-back mode.
Right.
For a lot of as we were building play, I think he got frustrated and charged about a bit after a little while, which is his want. But I think by and large he was sort of QB and dropping back into that hole and playing his diags.
I like how when you said QB for a second, Rich, I thought you was like saying he was QB, like he resembled a cube.
Yeah, it's hip to be square,
Square. So I just wonder about that in the case of Hutchinson. Was that, I don't know. I think everything apart from maybe his defensive part was pretty good today.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because I quite liked him, but then I think about the goals and I'm like, where was Hutch in all this?
Both the goals were really, really bad. I think the second goal is more understandable. I think the first one, as you say, is straight up just what are the defense doing. I think the second one is more understandable as a result of the formation we were playing, because I think you play Murphy on the wing. That means Palmer's got no protection at all, really, and him. Reach and Murphy were kind of interchanging in a way that made it even worse for Palmer, because it was like neither of them were even making a pretend attempt to be the right winger who was tracking back. By and large, they were both just pushing forward and sauntering back when we inevitably lost the ball. So Palmer is in that classic situation of being caught between two men. He's watching the fullback, and whilst he's watching the fullback, the winger cuts inside, and it's Hoylett. His man is the one who scores, but Palmer was left in a position where he's marking two people. So, as you say, whether that should be Hutchinson's job because the two midfielders are sitting that bit deeper, I don't know, or whether it's Murphy or Reach not doing what they should, tracking back. Either way, it looks poor all round, because I think Palmer, there's not much of a threat from out wide. He should have reacted to the situation in front of him, or Iorfa should have. Altogether, it's just really bad, and it was a very, very easy goal for them to score once that ball went across. There was just no challenge whatsoever. Nobody trying to get in the way of the pass, and nobody was close enough to Hoylett to attempt to block the shot from going in either. So yeah, pretty poor stuff again.
Yeah.
But we kind of caught up to ourselves eventually. So 10 minutes after they scored their second goal, Tom Lees scored a very nice header. Very meat and potatoes.
It was completely just off the training ground, and I just said it's impeccable to see. That looks like we've practiced a corner. Yeah,
and it worked really well, and a very simple sort of header down for Tom Lees, and
I thought it was funny that we had so many. We're a team with a fair degree of high in number of position, I guess, and then we're coming up against Cardiff team that's. They hadn't even brought on Sol Bamba yet, so I thought we would have probably missed out against someone like Aidan Flint or something like this. So it's nice to just see that we just it was just so easy.
But then incredibly frustrating that seemed to be the last ball we put in the box from a corner.
Yeah, well, the note after that was the 18th minute. I said, it looks like we actually practice corners. Lee's making it look like he does it every day. It was that easy.
It was.
It was just everything was just so complacent about it that Lee's is like, yeah, of course I can score headers from corners.
Yeah.
When previously we've seen that sometimes it's not always been the case. He's not a particularly big goal scorer. He's not a big goal threat.
He should be better than he is, though, I think. He's one of those that...
Yeah.
some people are just there. I think he does attack the ball very well in their box, and obviously he's quite alive to things as well. So he's got a couple of goals with his feet from set pieces as well. And his goal against Stoke, I think he reacts pretty well in those situations. It's just more often than not, it goes over the bar rather than being a decent effort on target. So it'd be nice if there was a bit more of that threat to his game. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the biggest centre back, but he does really get up well. Were given half a chance, and we seem to have worked it well that he was up against one of their smaller players. I don't know whether it was Bakuna or Mendes Lang, but he was up against one of the smaller guys to win that header. So it didn't matter that they have the giant of Flint in the middle or Glatzel. If you don't put the ball near those players, they can't have an effect on the play. But it seemed like the next 3 or 4 corners after that, we tried short corner routines that didn't work.
Well, so my next comment is about the 21-minute mark. We had that corner, and then my overall arching comment of that is like, then it looks like we don't practice corners.
No,
because Bannon gave it to Murphy, and then Murphy's work from there seems to be give the ball away and then foul the player.
Yeah.
Or maybe it wasn't really a foul. It didn't look too bad. But I don't really have much faith in these officials that we had in Hillsborough today. So
I will say, sorry, official-wise, by the way, I think the ref came in for more criticism than maybe he deserved because of his past with Forestieri. So Tim Robinson, today's referee, for anyone who wasn't aware, is the guy that sent Forestieri off when he should have sent Dawson off, whatever it was, 5 years ago, when we played Hull at Hull in a night match on a Friday night. And Dawson absolutely went scythe down Forestieri on a break, and he gave Forestieri a second yellow for diving rather than giving Dawson the red card that he felt like he was obviously going to get because he was pleading with the referee to keep him on the pitch. So that's Tim Robinson's checkered past with the Wednesday folk.
And annoyingly, Rich, it's not the Tim Robinson who is the former SNL writer and creator of the Comedy Central show Detroiters, and the Netflix series I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. Though I think he'd leave the profession of being a referee because he's clearly stealing a wage. Feels a little bit like when you kind of work with someone who's maybe not working the best job in the world, but they don't really feel they're just being very rude and petulant and insolent, and you just kind of want to say to them, maybe you should be relieved of your duties so you can think about maybe doing something else. I feel the same way about this referee. It
was a bad team though as well. I think the assistants were pretty terrible as well, and not just against Wednesday. There was for us folks in the COP, there was a fairly clear handball by Iorfa in the box that was not picked up by the lino because he wasn't up with play, and the referee was in a really bad position for it as well. And it was really a funny. I don't think I've ever heard the COP make that noise before, but it was just a kind of collective, like, your gut reaction was but also don't say anything because nobody else has seen. So it was like a stifled sort of inhale of breath. It was just quite an odd moment, but it touched on the fact that the officials were not the best all round, so the referees were behind play, maybe feeling the effects of all that tryptophan coursing through their bloodstreams. Rubbish officials. So did anything else happen before halftime?
I just want to say the 30-minute mark, Flint and Bennett just went into each other in true slapstick fashion.
Yes.
The spirit of Home Alone at Essex post-Christmas. It was a little bit. It was
Hoylett, actually. It wasn't Flint. It was Hoylett.
Really?
Junior Hoylett did him.
Junior Hoylett. So Hoylett was okay, but Bennett had to go off.
Yeah, you can. Joe Bennett on his Twitter said something like he's got a head like a coconut or something like that, and has posted a picture of himself with a massive hematoma on his face.
Really?
Yeah, so, Junior Hoylett, your head is made of concrete. All good, though. No fracture. Great result from the boys. He looks really like Morgan Fox, Joe Bennett. We seem to have a type when it comes to left backs.
Slightly sometimes not entirely convincing.
Yes.
Affection for certain looking left backs.
But that head injury meant that we had an awful lot of time added on at the end of that half.
Mm-hmm.
And it also meant that Cardiff made 2 changes. So they brought on Will Volks for Bennett and sort of shuffled things about a bit. Because Volks is a midfielder rather than a defender.
Yeah, and then the 39-minute marker, Mendes Lang looked like he pulled something as well.
He was handily beating Fox in leg race, and then suddenly started going backwards because you could see his hamstring ping. I think
so. It was weird. So that it wasn't. I guess the weird thing then, they didn't do a like for like substitution at that point.
No,
that's when they kind of went and brought Sol Bamba on.
So I wonder if they were thinking about a bigger change at half time anyway to account for Bennett going off.
And to just shut up shop anyway.
And then so they just did it a bit earlier because of Mendes Lang going down. Because they then went to 3 centre backs with wing backs effectively, and made life pretty difficult for us from that point on. So half time, I was sort of I wasn't expecting any substitutions at half time, but I was hoping, as we've seen several times under Monk, I was hoping we'd come out with a bit of a different plan, a bit of a different look. We also this was the first time I've seen notes being passed around. So there was a note that went around in the first half. So it got passed to Fox, and then he passed it all the way across the back 4, and Palmer put it in his sock. And then there was another note getting passed around later that Bannon read and crumpled up and threw on the floor. So there was a lot of chopping and changing on the go. I think probably because they made their change, we were trying to make sure we reacted properly. But it didn't seem to have much impact. Beyond that initial flurry of chances that we had, we didn't really get much going against them for the rest of that first half, and even less happened in the second half.
So I was actually watching the game in true Canadian fashion from using the Wi-Fi that's Tim Horton on my laptop.
Nice.
And had to...
It's almost 2 on the nose.
I had to use the facilities with all my possessions, so I actually missed the first 3 minutes. So I made a note to ask you, did I miss anything from minutes 45 through to 48, Rich?
I would guess not.
You would guess not. You didn't have a Rolodex of all the events that happened in the game.
It's worth mentioning, half-time, there was a rather nice sky over Hillsborough, a sort of pinky sunset.
Oh, nice.
That genuinely might be the best thing that happened today. So Kadeem Harris got a yellow card for not being invisible. That happened in the 51st minute.
Yes.
A man tackled him, stood in front of him, and
he got a yellow. Yeah, I thought that was weird as well. I said on my notes, I'm so surprised he picked up a yellow.
Well, we all know that as soon as you lose possession, you have to evaporate as a person. You're not allowed to exist in time or space any longer. Otherwise, it's a foul. And Harris knows the rules. He's played this game a few times, and it's his fault, and he deserved that yellow just as much as Junior Hoylett's yellow. They are equal crimes.
Of course.
So this was probably the big turning point of the game, I think, in some ways. We made the decision to take Iorfa off and bring Jordan Rhodes on, which felt wacky.
Which just felt bizarre. Did you see, was Iorfa a bit less, was a bit gingerly in his usual gambling and, chewing up the ground on Hillsborough,
He really went for his only gamble of the game just before he got subbed off.
Yeah. I was disappointed we didn't see any marauding runs from Dominic Iorfa.
Yeah. So it's a weird sub in and of itself. And it clearly that was when the second note went around because nobody knew where they were supposed to be playing.
Yes. Yeah.
But just a couple of minutes after that, and this is the bit that probably Monk will be cursing the timing of.
Could we just
go
just take a quick look at? Let's just check in on where we thought the positioning was. So Hutchinson went to centre back. Was that correct?
Hutch played right back.
But I wondered whether that was just to kind of go into it.
So before Borna came on, yes. Hutch was playing centre back alongside Tom Lees.
So did that mean that Reach dropped into centre mid?
He did. Yes, he dropped.
Right. Okay. So that kind of makes sense.
Kind of. Yes. Although if those of you who like defending will notice that not much of that is going to happen from that midfield. We're really suspending our disbelief. If this was a Hollywood film, this is a very strange kind of plot here we've got going on. You know what I mean? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh. So anyway, the 59 minutes. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to?
Well, so
have the honours of getting into this?
You again will have had the benefit of a replay that I've not been able to see.
Okay, so I shall lead. 59 minute. I said Hoylett has to go. It's an awful challenge, and the referee completely bottled it.
Right. Yeah. So
just awful refereeing.
So what was it? Sort of 2-footed?
It wasn't 2-footed, but it was 1-footed. But the studs were off the ground.
Right, because I didn't get a good look at the tackle itself, but I thought it was good that the ref talked to his assistant who was closer.
Sure, which I thought would have led to the red card. Surely anybody who was closer to it would have seen that it was just a really awful challenge.
Yeah, my guess there is that the fourth official is the bottle job, because I think the ref went across went across thinking it probably was a red card, because he kind of had he checked his back pocket kind of thing on the way. He was making sure everything was in order for if he had to have his big moment with the red card. But presumably was talked out of it by the fourth official. I don't know, or maybe he talked the fourth official out of it. You never know. But I thought that's a good thing to do. Is not, because I do think too often referees kind of like charge into those situations.
Sure.
Chuck the card out and then don't actually think or talk or have those conversations. They've decided way ahead of when they need to what they're going to do. So I thought that was quite good that he spoke to his assistant. But then if they've come to the wrong conclusion, then that it doesn't matter, does it? Whether he took the time or not.
The
yellow card is the wrong decision if he does it straight away or after talking to someone. So but basically Palmer looked pretty shaky and went off injured. He did walk off. He didn't get stretchered off, but he didn't look in a good way at all, did he?
No. He was basically, using the two physios as, crutches, and then kind of like 2-footed, just kind of limping, kind of jumping, hesitantly jumping, his weight across both feet to just get off the pitch. I mean, it didn't look good when, he went down and did the usual, it can be usual theatrics of a player holding his ankle, but it didn't look too fun for him, I do want to say. So, again, we have this weird dynamic with football that basically challenges can be really dirty and really awful. But, it shouldn't really have... should it have a bearing if the player gets injured, if it's a really bad tackle?
Yeah.
In a way, it shouldn't.
It's one of the considerations.
You know what I mean? No, it isn't. And I in a way, I don't think it should be.
Because you can get injured doing the one this season. The one this season, Son got sent off for that horrific thing that happened against Everton. And actually, when you watched it back, Son actually what Son did had very little to do with the fact that the player broke his leg. The player broke his leg as part of the incident, but it was nothing to do. It wasn't the force of the tackle that made him break his leg. So sometimes the injury is not caused by the tackle itself. So it's a bit of a misnomer. But basically, it's one of those weird situations in the game. If you had your time again, what you do is you sit on that substitution of taking Iorfa off, and then when Palmer gets injured, presumably you bring on Jordan Rhodes for Palmer. Iorfa goes to right back. There's less upheaval. We didn't have that benefit of the 2020 hindsight. So instead what happens is when Palmer goes off, we make a second defensive switch up. bringing Julian Bernat onto the pitch and him going to left sided centre back and Hutchinson playing right back now with kind of Winnall. It was really quite strange. So Winnall and Reach and Rhodes were all dropping a little bit deeper alternately, but by and large it was supposed to be Reach dropping into that space. Not much happened in terms of shots.
No. And the interesting thing I kind of felt from that is, it looked like we probably would have scored those goals early on in the game. The first half attacking wise, we were pretty good.
Yeah.
So to just come out in the second half and really, I wondered whether there would have been a change to tweak things a little bit. I wondered whether we would have seen New You sooner, I'll be honest.
He's the obvious answer in some of those situations, isn't he?
Well, just if we're going up again, I think we would have probably done a bit better, maybe just chucking on some height just to kind of give some of those tall centre-backs, Flint and Bamba at the back for Cardiff a bit of, a few headaches.
I wasn't sure. So obviously the next sub we made was Jacob Murphy came off and Ati Nuyu came on, and that was in the 80th minute. So I think that sub was too late. I don't know whether Ati... I do hear your point, absolutely, that one way to battle that height is to introduce height. But one thing that we were never going to be able to do to Cardiff what Stoke did to us, that kind of bombardment of the box from every angle, would just have played to the strengths of Sol Bamba and Aidan Flint. Like, their bread and butter is just heading things away to the halfway line. That's what they're for, really. They've just got legs to get them to the place where they head the ball. By and large, neither of them are doing anything, anything useful with those dangly things from their hips. So I think the more we sort of played towards going aerial with our attack, the more it was just going to feed in to what they wanted to do. And late on, they even brought Patterson on, who's another big lad. I think he's 6 foot plus, can play right back, can play up front. I think he ended up playing kind of another defensive midfielder presence for them. So I don't know whether I might have been tempted, and I think the coaching staff definitely played with this. The other option is you bring on Kieran Lee just to try and work the ball a little bit quicker. As we know, that's how you beat a 5-3-2.
3-5-6.
You just move the ball. 3-5-2. So yeah, you just move the ball.
Switch the ball quicker. Yeah.
Switch the ball quicker. But Kieran Lee was sent to warm up sort of 3 or 4 different occasions in the second half, and I do think they were toying with whether that was the better thing to do. It's so hard to know. What we know from what we've watched was that Nuyu came on, had one fairly exciting chance, which looked to me like it definitely took a deflection off Sol Bamba, but didn't. Apparently, wasn't a deflection according to the referee. We just didn't. This game was really disappointing in that there was no response. We didn't get going at all second half.
Yeah.
It was relatively easy for Cardiff. We had 18 shots in this game, and only 5 of them were in the second half. So we were much more effective first half when it was rough and tumble and back and forth than we were when Cardiff just said, there's the ball, see what you can do. And it turned out what we could do was not very much at all.
Yeah. I also want to say, I don't know about the substitutions. I don't know. My other note was, it was kind of, I don't know what you would have done, so I can't sound too...
No.
I can't sound too snippy or too difficult about the entire thing.
I know.
But I don't know. I know... All you know sometimes, unfortunately, in our position, is sometimes basically just saying very crassly, what I'm seeing is not what I'm looking for. Not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And to quote the anodyne impression of Morgan Fox Morgan, that's Bannon and Fletcher came out with, that's what we're after.
That's what we're after.
It's not what we're after. Clearly, the last 2 games have been very much the opposite of what we've done. And
sorry.
I also do want to say we could have a new reality TV show at Hillsborough. A little bit MTV's The Real World. Basically, it's New You, Rhodes, and Winnall. Can they all get along?
Yeah.
It's just madness, the fact that we're just coming down to the element of thinking, let's just have all three strikers.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is the first time under Monk it's felt like those bad, what we criticised Bullen for, what was the worst parts of Stuart Gray's managerial reign. There's no plan, there's no tactics, there's no setup. It is literally just throw the people on and hope that more things happen. There was, most of the time when Rhodes was on, he seemed to be playing central midfield. It's really depressing, by the way. So it's so depressing how quickly he's gone back from a hat trick in one half of football to being every bit as bad as he's been the rest of the time he's been at Wednesday.
I know.
Just limp, useless, looking to fall over first, then anything, just pointless. No point in him being on the football pitch. He was on the pitch for over half an hour. I literally can't remember one thing he did.
I know.
Just taking up space and oxygen.
Suddenly we're very much in desperate need of, 2 more strikers?
We just need Fletcher back.
I know we need Fletcher back, but it's just...
Give him whatever he needs. Senecott, Tums.
Is it a new contract is what he needs?
Is that what he needs?
Possibly. I don't know.
I thought Bannon gave it an absolute, he gave it everything to try and make things happen. He must have, I don't know how far he ran, but he must have run further than any other player on the pitch and then some. He worked his socks off trying to make something happen up top with just nothing to work with. Because Winnall, after the first 10 minutes, stopped making those sort of clever breakaway runs that he seems to like. That seems to be his thing, really, is like peeling off a centre back and kind of making a bit of space for himself. But he seemed to stop doing that. He just sort of sunk into target man mode. And Reach just isn't a striker. He doesn't have those instincts. So there was a couple of balls Bannon played over the top that were really sumptuous, and Fletcher would have been begging for them to be played to him, presumably from his deathbed. And they would just, the folks that were up top today just looked at him like he was from another planet. And to be honest, Bannon was on another planet to the rest of the team today, because none of the rest of them turned up. For me, it's the worst performance I've seen under Monk. It's the worst one I've seen live. I just couldn't believe how little of a go we had in the second half. And I know that's kind of great armchair punditry. As you say, I don't know what needed to happen, but I know what happened wasn't what I wanted to see.
Yes.
I was amazed that second half. They came out more up for it than us second half. The start of the second half, they looked more on it. They had created more chances. We still look shell shocked.
Well, the hilarious thing was, I think, from just a bit I missed from the end of the first half, was right at the death of the first half. They nearly scored again.
Yes, yeah.
And then there was another occasion they could have made it 3-1 as well. And it was just...
Yeah, Flynn had an overhead kick at one point as well.
Did he? I completely forgot that. Maybe I've just taken it out from memory, but just genuinely they looked a hell of a lot more dangerous than us after 40 minutes, I think it was, essentially.
I mean, obviously we don't like watching Wednesday lose, but there's ways to lose. And kind of giving it your all and coming away thinking it's not our day is much more agreeable than whatever today was, where we just kind of limply didn't do anything really. There was no fight that second half, and or if there was fight, there was no quality. There's just nothing that kind of nothing to set us apart from a desperately poor Cardiff team. Man alive, are they rubbish? But they were better than us today, and they wanted it more. And I think that's what's so depressing about this performance.
Well, I think that was more depressing about Stoke, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I thought exactly the same thing. Just thinking, this is a team with some real limited beans,
Well, Tomlin that kind of was one of the baddies of the game in Cardiff.
Fucking hate Tomlin.
Well, exactly, but he treated us to 83 minutes of premium grade, FDA approved a-holery. But, he gets to walk off at 83 minutes as a hero because guess what? Lee Tomlin did his job today, and not one Wednesday player, apart from Barry Bannon, can look at themselves in the mirror and say, I did just as well as Lee Tomlin.
I really wanted to say when Tomlin went off, the referee did that awful new rule of letting, he couldn't, because he was almost
rule.
He was almost all like he was half the way there, wasn't he?
Exactly.
And basically Pearson and Ron O'Neill said, look, he's almost all the way there. And, and also this is quite funny because it's come up against Neil Harris, who has revealed from Sam Hutchinson. He basically said, it's not worth you going off the other way. Just go off the... Just go against... Don't bother.
More than your life's worth, mate. More than your life's worth.
Exactly. So, but if I was at Hillsborough, if I had the grave displeasure of being in your place at Hillsborough, maybe if I was positioned on the north stand, I was just thinking when it went off, I was like, as a Wednesday fan, I feel like I've seen enough in my lifetime of Lee Tomlin.
Yes. Did you feel like a loony or a toonie burning a hole in your pocket to kind of like be thrown towards the pitch? Did you had to stop yourself throwing a coin at your phone?
See, the problem with the coin system here in Canada is, the good thing in the UK is that a 2p piece is pretty large and it's not really worth much.
And,
so it's perfect for being hoiking and being a projectile at some dick of a football player. Not that I encourage such a thing.
No, it's disgraceful behaviour.
It's absolutely disgraceful behaviour.
And once we solve burglary and racism, we'll get on to coin throwing.
We'll get on to coin throwing. We're doing the think tank next week with Gary and the squad. Neil Thompson's going to facilitate it as well. Yeah, Jesus.
Oh.
So I could just feel from the Wednesday fans just like, oh God, I got to see even more of Lee Tomlin, just him doing his little tour of honour, being a tosser to all the fans, and then obviously getting round to the Cardiff fans, lording it up in front of me. Oh God. Yeah. I'm glad I didn't see any footage of it, but just the thought of it riled me something rotten. More than just how abject Wednesday were for another game. Actually, I don't know. The weird thing with this game is I actually feel that most of it was all right. Apart from the second half was lacking teeth going forward. But the problem is sometimes it plays all right, but we've had situations where you don't, maybe a Tom Lee's header's enough if the rest of the time we actually show some defensive mettle and we don't look like we're completely soft as shit. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So there's just such a lack of conviction defensively.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with defense and defenders. When you want to change a defense after a loss, you can't just keep chopping and changing as much.
No.
Strikers, I feel you can. You can afford to be like, largely I think we can afford to chop up the strikers a lot more than we can afford to chop up defense. So you just have to kind of work on something in training, or I don't know. It's kind of a bit like talking to a child and being like, could you not throw a tantrum next time? And the child goes, oh yeah.
No, definitely won't. Yeah.
Got it, Dad. Next time, not doing it. And then next time the tantrum comes along again. And it's like, I don't know what because we're not football coaches, but I trust.
Or parents.
Parents, thankfully, as well. So we're not having conversations about tantrums with our offspring. But there needs to be something done to correct. Like, they look like they're short on confidence. Or just lacking they lack a lot of conviction today. And it's just surprising because it just felt like it was the cornerstone of a Gary Monk side,
I think this is kind of harsh, but I think our best centre-back pairing is Burner and Iorfa. And obviously Lees has got his place, and by and large he's not let us down. But there weren't many tears being shed when Lees dropped out of the team because at that time he was looking pretty poor, and I think he's in that same sort of rot. And I think hopefully this is the opportunity to go back to that best pairing and hopefully let them gel again and and build that understanding that they had before Burner's injury, because you just want to go with you've got to put your best foot forward. And I think in terms of that centre-back pairing, those two are our best two players. They're both much better at distributing the ball than Tom Lee's, much more comfortable on the ball. I know that we did see at Stoke, that can sometimes play against you, obviously, but by and large, we see the rewards of it more often than we see any of the backlash. I think today was a gamble with the midfield, and I think it just didn't pay off. We had 2 against their 3, 4, sometimes 5 men dropping into that midfield, and Hutch and Bannon just weren't able to cope with the numbers there, and it left us horribly exposed. I think particularly when Murphy plays, it leaves lots of gaps because he's not bothered at all about defending, and in some ways that's okay. I don't, the worst thing that happened. Stuart Gray was a great manager for the time with us, but the fact that everybody's first job was defending meant that it was a pretty tedious watch by and large. So I do think it's okay. Certain players are good enough at attacking that you give them a pass on the defending, but Murphy didn't do enough going forward to justify his being there. Him and Reach were stepping on each other's toes too much. I just think this was a pretty poor starting lineup, and unlike previous performances where Monk has been good enough to course correct during the game, his subs and the events of the game didn't allow us to kind of start badly and then get better as the game went on, because our bad start was punished mercilessly with those 2 goals, which meant we were constantly uphill. And then the timing of that injury to Palmer was so unfortunate, and that's nobody's fault. But it was a huge, well, apart from Junior Hoylers. But that was a huge moment in the game. The fact that we'd already made the sub, it really hampered our choices we could make going forward, and I think fed into us not getting the result in the end. I think if you'd said to me, ahead of the festive games, you're not going to have Fletcher for all 3 of those matches, I might have taken 4 points from those 3 games. A draw today, losing one of those games and winning the other, I probably would have said that's not too bad. Mm-hmm. I know it's not been great opposition across the board, but Fletcher is such a big player for us. But 3 just feels so much worse than 4, even though it is only 1 point.
Yeah, and then we really had what would the complexion have been if we had 2 points more? Yeah, because I feel like both games we probably should have, even being below par, we could have posted a point at both. Posted a draw in both situations. Yeah. The other thing was just saying, like an early thing I was saying was, one of my notes early on was like, this would be a perfect time for Sam Winnall to announce himself reborn, much like Jordan Rose with a hat trick. With a perfect hat trick. But it was just, the thing was so disappointing is typically we don't score many goals, so that's the whole thing. But then we had it all to do to put ourselves in the winning position, and by conceding 2 early goals within the first 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
First 8 minutes to be precise. And looking at our lineup, I just had no faith that there was any great goals in there.
No. And the bench as well. It was particularly uninspiring.
Yeah. It's like, again, what options do we have to change it? We're not even sacrificing one of Reach and Murphy to think even one of those 2 could come off the bench, because they're both starting.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to see them. Oh, sorry, go on. You don't want to. I like the idea of Reach playing the role he played today. Yeah. On paper, I do. The reality is probably a little bit different, Yeah, particularly Reach in this sort of form. Yes. Because this is Reach this season is a different guy to the last 3 years or 2 years, however many years it's been. It's just a different proposition having him up front, having not got the goals that he's got in previous years. It's just a lot less frightening to the opposition, because you can kind of give him a chance to have a shot, because the chances are he's going to miss it, which he did. He had a fairly decent chance today. Yeah. And missed it. And we just wanted the Adam Reach of last season to put his sweet left peg through it. Yeah. And it just didn't happen. I've got a lot of, hope and faith for him. I do really like Adam Reach. And one of the things I like is that he is still working his socks off. But it's just not happening for him at the moment. And I don't want to see, I don't mind the idea of Reach or somebody being somebody who's not a striker being that number 10 role. But what I don't want to see again is Murphy and Reach playing on top of each other.
She's really loud, this one.
So we'll move along to player ratings then.
Yes, let's do player rating.
So Cameron Dawson first up in nets.
Oh, mouth save Cammy. He did okay, I guess. I don't know. Maybe the first goal I think he could have done better with. Outside of that, he was okay. He made 1 or 2 saves. His kicking wasn't completely poor.
Yeah, it's the sort of performance for me that is why when we were looking ahead a few weeks ago to what business we might want to do in the January transfer window, a goalkeeper was one of those positions we wanted to fill. It's the sort of performance. So I still am convinced that he's doing a better job than Westwood was doing before, and probably would be doing in the same situations. But he's still not a particularly good goalkeeper. I don't think that's harsh to say. I appreciate he's an academy product. People do have more loyalty to players that come up through the academy, and I think that's a lovely thing. But you really would have to have your eyes painted on to think that Cameron Dawson is a tremendous goalkeeper by any stretch. He's all right.
Yeah,
he's work a day. He's doing a job. Whether that's good enough in such a pivotal position as goalkeeper, I would argue not. I think you need someone very good if you're going to be a team challenging at the top of the champions.
Sure, but
which is so good.
I don't know. Maybe we're not putting ourselves in the position to be, to kind of prove the quote about goalkeepers correct. Is that a good goalkeeper's worth 15 points a season? Because I think previously Westwood was that goalkeeper and was putting himself in those positions where he was winning his points with very important saves.
Yes.
But today, I guess the difficult thing is he's made a few saves. He's done okay. But really, he's just been completely undone by his defender. Yeah,
absolutely. It's hard it would be extremely harsh to point any of the blame for today's defeat in the direction of Cameron Dawson. But by the same token, I would feel that probably the goalkeeper in the other goal probably would have saved that first one. That's my gut feeling, just looking at it. I don't know anything about goalkeeping, but it looks to me like Dawson's out of position and puts himself in a bad place when it comes to saving the shot that eventually comes through.
Yeah.
But by and large, I'd be happy to sort of give Dawson something like 6.5. I think he did okay. And as I say, it's certainly not his fault that we lost today.
Yeah, I would think maybe a 6. It's more of a kind of round number.
Nice round
around that 6 ballparks and not up to the notch of a 7. Something important. It's an interesting point you make about that. It makes you wonder, is he just completely... It's almost like, you go past a car crash and you rubberneck what the hell's going on there, and then you actually, cause a problem with your own driving. So was he, you almost, I'm wondering if it was a similar situation. Was he looking at Lees and Palmer being like, what the fuck are you two doing?
Yeah. Well, he would be excused if that was the case. Yeah. What the hell are you doing, guys? Oh, and there's a goal.
Yeah.
Speaking of the aforementioned Liam Palmer.
Liam Palmer did all right today, I thought, apart from maybe having a second assist on the, for the negative playmaking on the first goal. I thought he did all right. I'm really just really gutted for him, just coming off in that situation.
Yeah.
Just really being on the end of that Julian Hoylett tackle and, him really taking that really badly.
Hopefully it's one of those that's sore in the moment and doesn't have a lasting effect, but you just never know, do you?
Sure. You wonder if it might just, I don't know, let's just complete a complete conjecture about injuries and sports science, as we do here on Different Gravy. But maybe it's in kind of inflamed and then hopefully it dies down.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I could think of maybe we'd be in a position to change that back five in terms of that centre back pairing, but I don't really want to go and look at anybody else in that situation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Score-wise,
maybe 6.5 for Liam.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Dominic
Iorfa, and I felt bad for Iorfa that, he's maybe had a hand in this defensive, but I don't think he's the big main culprit,
No.
I feel bad for him today.
And then he's the one that sacrificed as well.
One of our probably best players and probably our prize assets who want to Burnley are batting their eyelashes for a large, sizable transfer fee, possibly, if rumours and conjectures are to be believed. But I really didn't like seeing him be sacrificed at that point. Maybe we just say, maybe I'm going to say 6.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. In some ways, it really didn't make sense as him being the one that was sacrificed, unless he was injured or something, because he's more likely to get a goal. Surely he's more likely to go on a run. I don't know. Today was a really strange day all round. Tom Lees.
Does the fact that the last 2 games he's been our top goal scorer just kind of make up some defensive faux pas?
To an extent, definitely.
But I don't think it's. The problem is, both of these games we've come out, losing on the end of all this stuff.
Yeah.
So you can't really say that, I guess.
No.
Maybe a 6 purely because he scored, but I don't know. I'm really upset with.
I think he was pretty poor today. Really thought he was pretty poor today.
The fact, and also the thing you've kind of given the insight into the second goal and him appealing for offside. That doesn't bode well in him at all.
No,
at all.
I think 6. Yeah, 6. Inflated by the goal to a 6 says a lot, and I would go along with that definitely. Captain Fox Morgan.
Maybe he's one of the better defenders, I think, in this situation. I thought he was pretty good. I don't think he really made any great mistakes.
No?
I mean, the first goal came from down inside. Who conceded the foul? That was
Yeah, I can't really remember.
It was Iorfa, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I looked at his crosses. I think maybe we can be generous and give him a 7 in this instance.
Okay, I think that's quite generous.
That's right. It's more of a 6.5. I think most players about 6.5 today.
Yeah. Hutchinson.
I liked Hutch for a lot of this. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what he did defensively. I think that's this is the other edge of the sword, the kind of the Tom Lee sword. I can go score a goal, but then hey, look at this defensive error. I thought, look at me slip on this banana skin. I
do think whether it's encouraged by the manager or not, you do see the difference in terms of tactical discipline, and I think that's a big thing. We talked about Luongo maybe not having the impact that he could have had in some of the games, but I think by and large it's because he's holding to a position, and like tactically he's doing what the team needs him to do first and foremost.
Yeah.
And I do think when Bannon and Hutch are kind of both running around like teenagers, it just leaves us horribly exposed. We can't have them both doing that. It just doesn't work. I thought Hutch had a fairly good game. He popped up, had a decent effort at one point, a decent shot. But whether he was doing what he needed to do for the team to thrive, I'm less sure about. So yes, I think another one for the 6.5 gang for me.
Yeah, I think 6.5 is probably fair.
Barry Bannon.
I think Wee Baz is probably our star performer of this game, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I think he was the one who, I really feel, I feel definitely sometimes some of these poorer Wednesday performances, some of our players are really let down by the actions of others. And Barry Bannon is one of those. Definitely. I thought he was probably the best thing about Wednesday today.
Yeah.
He was trying to make everything happen. He had an assist, the lovely cross, lovely corner set piece for the goal. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Rest of it, I don't know. So
where would you fall score-wise for him?
I think a 7. I think it's a comfortable 7 out of 10 from Barry Bannon.
Fair enough.
I don't think you can give anyone in a losing sense any more than a 7. And there's a few smatterings of those in the team,
Yeah. Murphy?
What do I feel about Murphy? What do I feel about the, maybe the poorer of the two Murphys overall? Obviously his brother was on the bench. Did he come on?
He didn't come on. He didn't.
Interesting. His twin brother did not come on, which is weird. And I don't know. How do I feel about Murphy? I'm going to give him maybe I think he scrapes a 6.
Yeah.
I think there were moments. That were quite good.
But pretty ineffective overall.
Pretty ineffective. I almost felt that like maybe for a Murphy performance. It is Josh Murphy who we have, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
No, Jacob is the one we have. Josh is the other one.
Josh is the other one, sorry.
We've got Jacob Marley from The Christmas Carol.
Excellent. God, I don't know. I felt like he needed to. But the thing I want to say, I think to be positive, is I think if he would have had, I felt bad for him in a way that I feel bad for his other counterpart on the other end. We will get on to Harris. And I just felt that if they just had a bit of end product today,
yeah,
it just felt there's a little bit missing. And I kind of feel bad for him because sometimes if it doesn't happen, then, I wish it would happen for them.
Yes, yeah. He's another one that can slip into that Rhodes thing of just looking so, well, we kind of used the word limp with him before. Just so like there's just nothing about. It's like he's sort of a bit of a sort of bag floating about on the wind. Nothing. He doesn't seem to do anything of his own will. It's just where he kind of goes where there's space, and maybe he gets the ball, maybe doesn't. And if he's got the ball, he's more likely to get tackled than anything else, and just drifts through games, which you could never accuse Harris of.
Yeah, that's very true. So you do want to say, on the podcast, Rich, Jacob Murphy, American Beauty?
Yes, I do.
You do. Do you want to film him and then send the footage to Fora Birch and then get to see your boobs?
Yeah, and maybe end up, in a kind of rose petal situation with Maina Savari. Yeah, these are all things.
Yeah, you want to be in a film that was lauded at the time, but we look back on it as being something intensely problematic, and it hasn't aged well.
And also, that's where I'd like to stop with following the career path of Kevin Spacey.
Yes, exactly. Jacob Murphy, American Beauty. He's not beautiful. He's an ineffective winger.
He's cute. He's got a certain charm. I don't know whether to go for Reach or Harris next.
I was wondering about Reach. I was wondering about thinking him in that number 10 kind of role. That's I think is what he was kind of doing today. He was kind of in the hole, wasn't he? Adam Reach, Weechy. The man who I crowned would be the player of our season, and I've been nothing but completely wrong and disappointed in a staggering fashion.
Oh,
it's been pretty dynamically opposite, I should be honest. So I liked the idea, as I mentioned earlier on in the show, about how I like the idea of Adam Reach in this role. Maybe in a weird way, I'm kind of wondering and kind of comparing it to. Do you remember when we under Jos Lukai, we were under quite a good run under the guy, and we went away to Millwall and we played Ross Wallace in a false nine.
Yes.
The hilarious thing about that is because we're Wednesday fans, we really like these players, and our levels of fandom and fanaticism, even when there are players that we don't particularly like or we don't talk well of. So the ones that we feel do well, we kind of want them to be better players. We want them to, we'd love the idea of them playing in a very beautiful kind of footballing system where they can really be skillful and really do some damage and, put on a real kind of exemplary performance that, makes, that other people notice in and around the football club and outside the football club. And, I'd really like the concept of Adam Reach being that player who's someone who could do something like that, but he's not quite there. Or maybe at this stage, and then Adam Reach's, at this point in his career for this season for Sheffield Wednesday, he's not there.
Yeah, no.
I wish it would work. I wish it would work so badly, but it wasn't quite working. I like his industry to get around the park. I think he did very well in that regard. But it wasn't great from Adam Reach. Maybe I don't know, maybe a 6.5. Is that kind of okay? Or maybe a 6, maybe more of a solid 6. I don't know.
I think a 6. I think it's hard to point to much that Reach did today again. I also don't think it helped him and Murphy playing together. They're not similar, but they are too similar at the same time. I know that's a bit of a strange thing to say, but
interesting.
They just seem to want to do the same thing as each other.
Yeah.
There was a couple of times where they were literally stood on each other's toes on the byline, and you're like, what is the point in this? One of you should be looking for space. There's just no use both of you standing out there, and I don't know whose fault it is that was happening. They're both good enough players to know that that's not sensible, but it didn't stop it happening. It happened 2 or 3 times. It just, pretty ineffective all round. Kadeem Harris.
Similar things like I mentioned. I don't know. He was okay. I think maybe I'm thinking a 6.5.
Huffed and puffed.
Huffed and puffed. I was disappointed for him because I know how much he probably wants and a really good performance against his former employees. But I felt like they had him matched, or he was ineffective. I couldn't quite work out where it fell.
Jazz Richards.
Maybe a bit of A, maybe a bit of B, and Jazz Richards isn't a particularly good player at all.
Jazz Richards knew the tune. He was able to cope with all of the time signature changes from Harris.
He could almost take 5, couldn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Jazz Richards was just blowing his horn all over the shop. And disappointed. I felt that maybe Harris, he was almost a little bit off just having like a real nice finish or a good cross.
Yeah.
I don't know how much a good cross would have done in this game. Well, I think Fox put in quite a few crosses and it didn't happen.
Yeah. There was some odd decision making from Harris today. There was a couple of times where he took shots where I just don't know what he was thinking, really. It was, again, frustrating. I do think he really looked like one that the fact we've played so often in such a short succession seems to really have had an effect on him. He just wasn't his usual self today, which is a bit of a shame. But for me, definitely the best out of those three, the kind of attacking midfield three, I thought Harris was the better of the three of them. So I would go along with the 6.5. Sammy Winnall, the last.
Sammy Winnall. I was hoping it was untrue that what Barrett Bannon and Fletcher about him, that he loves an L. I'd rather he didn't like an L. I'd rather he likes a W.
Yeah.
For his last name. And this is the weird thing, and I think Winnall kind of encapsulates the entire feel of this game. We've done player ratings, and we've you look at the player ratings, kind of average or mildly positive from what we've given players today.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weird thing is, like, individually it wasn't terrible, but collectively it was bad,
Yes.
So how do you kind of isolate any one player, and how do you... And that was the weird thing with Winnall, was that, like, it's such a weird role for him, being this lone striker. And, he wasn't completely isolated, but you just felt it didn't really work for him.
I think that's a lot of the story of today is we tried quite a few different things, and none of them really worked.
Yeah.
We probably tried 3 or 4 different takes on things in the hope that one of them or 2 of them would work better than expected. And what actually happened was none of them worked. Reach being up top didn't work at all. Winnall being up on his own didn't work at all. Reach and Murphy being in the same starting lineup didn't work at all. Like there was no upside of any of the things that we experimented with today.
Yeah.
Which it shows how limited we are. I think we're very reliant on a couple of players. I think add a Luongo to this mix and it looks quite different potentially. Certainly add Fletcher to this mix and it looks an awful lot different.
Where was
but
Luongo
they are
today?
just 2 men. I think he picked up a knock or so. He basically there was something that kept him from being in the squad altogether.
Because I'd quite like to see, if it's today's, I would like to have seen, I don't know if it would make much difference, but I'd like to have seen Luongo instead of Reach in that kind of spot.
Yeah.
And then maybe Reach replaces Murphy, or, we don't then have a dilemma, like you said, of playing 2 similar players in the same game.
Yeah.
One can kind of pick up what the other one gets off. We have someone on the bench who could possibly change things. That would have been so much better. And I would have loved, like, Luongo's industry and just something kind of pushing through the middle, because it wasn't particularly working for us on the wings. It doesn't then particularly work with kind of a crosses coming in without Fletcher, or maybe even sometimes New maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm grasping at straws. Winnall,
I know,
did okay overall. I mean, he was a lot better than the majority of Jordan Rhodes' time with the football club. But it still is ineffective. I don't know, a 6.5, is that fair?
That's fair. I think it's more than fair. Yeah, that's fair enough. Jordan Rhodes.
Yeah, 5.5. I just wasn't.
No.
Bits of it were good, but not enough of it was good.
I barely remember him touching the ball.
I had one bit where I think he won the ball and then he pulled it back and then we sent a cross in and then Winnall didn't get on the end of it. I think that's what happened. But he worked hard to kind of win that ball back, and that was one bit I remembered of his time on the pitch.
Sounds good. Sounds thrilling.
5.5.
Yeah, fair enough. Julian Burner.
Julian Burner. He was okay. Maybe a 6.5 I'd give Burner. I don't remember. It's great seeing back on the pitch. It's just such a bad situation for him to be in.
Yeah.
Because in that sense, it's like the damage is done. There's nothing we're really going to probably look to Burner at just to kind of make sure it's not, 3 or 4.
I've got a lot of time for, players who win games get to keep their place. Like, I think as a principle to stick with, by and large, it's a good one. But I would say, for me, Burner is our best centre-back. It should be Burner and somebody. So I want to see him back in the squad. I think he should be starting games. He's a lot better than Tom Lees is at defending and playing the ball forward. So I want him back in the squad. These little bit parts he's played, it's nice to see him back. He's clearly fit and ready to go. Let's get him back in there. Whether it's alongside Lees or Iorfa, it just needs to happen. It might be that the window that opens because of Palmer's ankle is that Iorfa ends up playing right back and we see all three of them together. That might be what happens going forward, but we'll see. Because certainly Odebajo seems to be about as far away from the team as you can be, but still be on the subs bench.
Very, very true. Very true.
Atty knew you. He came on for sort of 10-15 minutes.
You did. I can't remember anything he did. Can you?
No.
I don't really remember much working.
One chance. He did that. Had that one chance right near the end.
Do you want to say that scrapes a 6?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll go with that. That sets him apart from Jordan Rhodes.
It does.
Deal.
Because I hated Jordan Rhodes. Just kick him into the corner. JR6.
JR6. Oh, we'll always have Nottingham. We'll always have
Forest. Yeah.
Yeah. That's us, isn't it? I think
I believe that is. Yeah. The referee was awful.
Yeah. We've got Dull next. New Year's Day. The dawning of a new decade.
Is that at home or away?
It's at home. We've got Hull at home.
Oh, good.
Well, Stoke we beat in the last round of fixtures. Stoke we beat surprisingly in a bad game. Cardiff we drew without knowing really what was going to happen. But Hull we surprisingly lost to. So it'd be nice if the kind of role reversal continues and we actually win.
That would be fantastic. Yeah,
almost by accident, in the same way that we lost it by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And Murphy will get his penalty, and it's all going to be good.
Excellent.
Fletch will be back. He'll be first footing into the whole box and spilling his Hogmanay grog over their goal line. Oh dear. Right. On that note, I'm going to say cheerio, Luke.
See you, Rich. Have a good one.